My mother-in-law switched my newborn at the hospital because she was just a worthless girl, but she made one fatal mistake that would cost her everything. The baby in my arms had the wrong eyes. I stared at those blue irises, stranger's eyes in a face that should have been mine, and my entire body went cold. Like someone had injected ice water directly into my veins. The hospital bracelet said Baby Boy Anderson, but every cell in my body was screaming. This wasn't my daughter. The birthmark I'd seen, that perfect crescent moon on her left shoulder blade, was gone, vanished like it had never existed. And standing in the corner of my hospital room was Catherine, my mother-in-law, wearing a smile that looked like victory. What I didn't know yet was that smile would cost her absolutely everything. I'm Olivia Anderson, and what I'm about to tell you will sound impossible. But I have the security footage, the police reports, the text message chains, the confession recordings, and the DNA proof that confirms every single word of the story. This is real. This happened. And honestly, I'm still processing it 3 years later. My pregnancy had been textbook perfect. Low risk, uncomplicated, the kind that made my OB smile during appointments. Everything's progressing beautifully, she'd say, and I'd float home on clouds of pregnancy hormones and nesting instinct. Derek, my husband, was equally excited. We'd set up the nursery together, folding tiny clothes in colors of pale yellow and mint green. We'd wanted to be surprised by the baby's sex, even though my mother had insisted I find out so she could plan the shower properly. Derek's mother, Catherine, had a different approach to my pregnancy. She called Derek constantly, never asking how I was doing, but always asking what gender we were having. The Andersons have always had sons first, she'd tell him, like it was a family law carved in stone. It's tradition. Your father was the firstborn son. You were the firstborn son. The legacy continues. Even then, something about her obsession felt wrong. But I brushed it off as typical mother-in-law overbearingness. I was naive. So incredibly naive. My labor started on a Tuesday morning. 19 hours of pain that transcended anything I'd imagined. Pain that consumed my entire existence and burned away everything but the singular focus of getting this baby out of my body. Complications emerged around hour 17. My blood pressure spiked. The baby's heart rate dropped. Suddenly the room filled with people in scrubs, moving with practiced urgency that terrified me more than any pain could. We need to do an emergency C-section, the doctor said, and I barely had time to process the words before they were wheeling me into the OR. The anesthesia hit me like a tidal wave. I remember the nurse's voice cutting through the fog. It's a girl. You have a beautiful baby girl. Through the medication haze, those words registered somewhere deep in my consciousness. A daughter. I was having a daughter. When they finally placed her on my chest, just for a moment, just long enough, I forced my eyes open through the medication fog. I counted her fingers through my tears. 10 perfect digits. Her eyes were closed, face scrunched and red, but I saw it immediately. The birthmark. A small crescent moon shape on her left shoulder blade, like someone had pressed their thumbnail into soft clay. I had the same birthmark. My mother had it too, and my grandmother before her. It was our family's signature, written in skin across generations, passed down through the women in our family like a blessing, like proof of lineage. That detail burned into my memory like a brand. Even through the medication fog, even as exhaustion pulled me under, I knew. Crescent moon, left shoulder, my daughter. That was my baby. We'll get her cleaned up and do the measurements, then bring her right back, a nurse said gently, lifting my daughter from my chest. I watched through blurred vision as they attached a tiny bracelet to her ankle and a matching one to my wrist. The numbers glowed under the harsh lights. Number 4729. Identical. Connected. Proof we belonged together. She's perfect, I whispered, my voice raw and slurred from medication. Derek's tears hit my shoulder. She's got your nose. But they were taking her away already, and exhaustion dragged me under like a riptide. I hadn't slept in over 30 hours. My body felt like it had been through a war and I'd lost. That's when Catherine swept into the room like she owned the place. She stood at the foot of my bed in her pristine white cardigan, still looking perfect despite the early morning hour, and looked at my sleeping form with an expression I couldn't quite read through my medicated haze. Something in her face shifted. Something hungry. Something calculating. "Let me stay with the baby in the nursery while you rest, sweetheart," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "You look absolutely exhausted. You need to recover from that surgery." I should have trusted my gut. That cold finger of dread running down my spine was screaming something wasn't right. I should have said no. God, I wish I'd said no. But my eyelids weighed 1,000 pounds, the medication pulled me down, down, and I was too out of it to argue. "Just watch over her," I managed to whisper as consciousness slipped away. The last thing I saw before sleep claimed me was Catherine's smile. It should have looked grandmotherly, protective. Instead, it looked like a predator baring its teeth before the kill. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that in the nursery, Catherine was executing a plan she'd been perfecting for weeks. The maternity ward that night was chaos. Nurses rotating shifts, paperwork piling up, new admissions coming in constantly. The night shift was severely understaffed. 2 nurses had called in sick. Exhausted, overwhelmed staff. The perfect environment for someone who knew exactly what they were doing. But Catherine had another advantage. The hospital had been updating its security system that week. The electronic tag sensors for the tamper-proof baby bracelets were offline for maintenance, a small detail Catherine had somehow found out about and timed her plan around meticulously. Without those sensors active, the bracelets were just plastic bands. They could be removed, replaced, without triggering any alarms. Catherine had spent weeks preparing this. She'd befriended Barbara Chin, an administrator in the hospital who'd previously worked as a maternity nurse. During these visits, claiming she wanted to be familiar with where her grandchild would be born, she'd studied the shift patterns, identified the vulnerabilities, cultivated the right relationships. And then the Morrisons checked into the hospital at 10 p.m. in active labor, with a confirmed baby boy. Catherine had been waiting for exactly this scenario. The night of my delivery, Barbara used old credentials to access the system. Credentials that should have been deactivated years ago. She flagged both my file and the Morrison family's file as needing manual correction. A technical error that gave her the perfect excuse to access both charts without raising suspicion. Catherine had positioned herself perfectly. She'd brought coffee and pastries for the nursing staff earlier that evening. By 4 a.m., when the night shift was at its most exhausted, she'd already been in and out of the nursery 3 times. No one questioned her presence anymore. She was just the doting grandmother. In a room 2 doors down, Ava Morrison had given birth to a baby boy at 11:47 p.m., just 4 hours before my daughter was born. Their son had a hospital bracelet. So did my daughter. Barbara brought both babies to the nursery for routine middle-of-the-night checkups. Standard procedure. Nothing suspicious. That's when Catherine made her move. She didn't just swap bracelets. That would have been too obvious. Barbara had replacement bracelets, the exact kind the hospital used, and a portable printer. They printed new ones carefully. My daughter became marked as male, and the Morrison son became marked as female. Then Barbara used her administrative access to alter the digital birth certificates. Changed the gender markers. Made it appear that I'd had a boy all along, and the initial paperwork was just wrong. Catherine had even enlisted a delivery nurse to help seal the lie. One voice of fake authority. That's all it took to make my confusion sound like hysteria and medication-induced delirium instead of maternal instinct. The physical bracelets matched the digital records. The electronic birth certificates had been altered. Everything looked legitimate unless you knew to look for the manipulation. Unless you understood exactly how deliberately everything had been orchestrated. By the time they brought the baby back to my room, the crime was complete. For the first 36 hours, I was too drugged and too weak to process much of anything. The C-section recovery was brutal. Every movement felt like my incision was tearing open. I could barely sit up without assistance, could barely think through the fog of heavy-duty pain medication and post-surgical exhaustion. But mother's instinct doesn't require consciousness. Doesn't need clarity of thought or physical strength. It's something deeper. Something ancient and primal. Every time they brought the baby for feeding, something felt profoundly off. His weight felt different in my arms, heavier somehow, or maybe just distributed differently. The way he nursed seemed wrong. The shape of his head felt unfamiliar. And I kept dreaming about that birthmark, the crescent moon that matched mine, the mark that should have been there. By the second day, the pain medication was reduced and my head started clearing. The fog lifted like morning mist burning away under sunlight. And that's when the real horror began. Derek was beside the bed, helping me sit up. Even that small movement made me gasp in pain when I finally worked up the courage to check. "Derek," I said, my voice hoarse and uncertain. "Hand me the baby. I need to check something." He handed me the baby carefully, looking confused but not alarmed. With Derek supporting my back, I turned the infant gently to check the shoulder blade. No birthmark. Smooth, unmarked skin where the crescent moon should have been. My hand started shaking so hard I almost dropped him. The world tilted. Reality fractured. "Derek. Derek, look," I whispered.
He leaned in.
"What?" "No birthmark." I pulled down my hospital gown to show him my left shoulder. "Look, I have it. My mother had it. My grandmother. It's genetic. It passes through the women in my family. I saw it on our baby right after birth. I felt it. I know I did. This baby doesn't have it." "Liv, maybe you were confused. And they told me it was a girl." "I heard it, Derek. The nurse said it's a girl." I remember, even through the medication. I remember. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Let me check the bracelet number." He looked at the baby's ankle bracelet. "Number 4729. Baby boy Anderson." Then he checked my wrist bracelet. "Number 4729. They match, babe." But what did my admission paperwork say? What gender was on the ultrasound reports? Before I went into labor? Check. That question changed absolutely everything. What followed was a cascade of phone calls and forms and increasingly panicked conversations with hospital staff. The admission paperwork from 3 weeks earlier clearly stated female, confirmed via ultrasound at 36 weeks. But the birth certificate filed yesterday listed male. And there was a note attached that said, "Corrected administrative error in initial gender entry." The room went silent. Derek's face changed from patronizing concern to something harder. Sharper. Dangerous. "Show me that note," he said quietly. "Who made that correction?" The nurse pointed to a name on the screen. Barbara Chen. "She's in administration now, but she used to be a maternity nurse." The woman who'd been so friendly with Catherine. The one who'd kept calling my mother-in-law generous. The one who'd smiled too much when they were together in the hallway. "I want to see the security footage," Derek said, his voice dropping into a tone I'd never heard from him before. A tone that suggested someone was going to answer his questions. "From the nursery. During the overnight shift.
Now."
"And check the ID bracelet numbers," I added, my own voice shaking. "The one in the paperwork. Check if it matches the one on the baby."
She did.
It didn't. The numbers were completely different. "Oh my God," the nurse whispered, her face going white as milk. "These don't match. These numbers don't match at all." The hospital administrator arrived 20 minutes later. Patricia, a tired-looking woman who'd initially seemed to think we were being hysterical, took one look at the mismatched paperwork, the changed records, the impossible discrepancies, and her entire expression shifted from irritation to genuine alarm. "We'll pull the nursery footage immediately," she said, already dialing on her phone. But 40 minutes later, she returned with news that made my blood run cold. "There's a technical issue. The footage from 4 a.m. to 5 a.m. is missing. The files appear to have been deleted from our main server." "Deleted?" Derek's voice could have shattered glass. "How is that possible?" "Our security system has redundancies," she said, her voice shaking. "This shouldn't be possible, but someone accessed the security system using old administrative credentials that should have been deactivated. They deleted the files and cleared the backup cache." "Whose credentials?" I whispered. "Barbara Chen's. From 3 years ago when she worked in a different department." Everything clicked into place like the final piece of a horrifying puzzle. Catherine appeared in the doorway, like She'd materialized from my worst nightmare. "What's all this noise?" "Olivia, you'll upset the baby." I turned to her, and something cold and certain settled in my gut like ice water in my veins. "You were in the nursery. You stayed with the baby. What did you do?" Her smile was practiced, perfect, utterly inhuman. "Nothing happened, sweetheart. I watched over your son while you rested. That's all." "My daughter," I said, and my voice came out sharp as a blade. "I had a daughter." Catherine's laugh was light, dismissive, the laugh of someone who believed she'd already won. "Oh, honey, no. You're confused from the medication. You had a beautiful baby boy. Why wouldn't you want to celebrate? This is wonderful news. The Anderson legacy continues with a..." "Stop." My voice cut through her speech like ice. "Just stop talking." I grabbed the call button and pressed it frantically. When the nurse came, a different one, not the woman who'd been so friendly with Catherine, I was already crying. "Check the records," I said. "Please." "My admission paperwork. What gender did it say when I came in?" She returned with a printout, her face pale. "Your admission file from 3 weeks ago says female, confirmed via ultrasound. But the birth certificate filed yesterday lists male. And there's a note that says, corrected administrative error." Derek took the printout from her hands. "I want to know everything. Every person who accessed these files. Every administrator. Every clerk. Every nurse who had access to that baby. I want names and I want them now." The police arrived within the hour. Then the FBI arrived 6 hours later when they realized the payments had been routed through interstate accounts, making it federal jurisdiction. What they uncovered was a conspiracy so deliberate, so calculated, that it made my skin crawl. Barbara Chun confessed immediately after they brought her in for questioning. She named everyone. Marcus Liu, the records clerk, had accepted payment to alter the electronic charts. James Peterson, the night security guard, had accepted payment to delete the security footage and had been paid extra to keep quiet. Sarah Mitchell, the delivery nurse, had taken money to help confirm the gender lie and gaslight me in those critical first hours. That was 4 people. 4 hospital employees who'd accepted money to participate in the theft of my daughter. But the real evidence came from Derek's phone. Derek's family had a shared phone plan, a plan his father Richard had set up years ago to monitor family billing. That same plan automatically backed up deleted text messages to a cloud storage system. Catherine, who'd been so careful about so many things, had made one critical mistake. She'd used her own phone for all the planning. All of it. Derek accessed the cloud backup, and we scrolled through messages that made my blood run colder with each word. "If it's a girl, can you make sure I have access to the nursery around 4 a.m.? Less staff, right?" "Yeah, 4 to 5 a.m. is our slow period." "But Catherine, are you sure about this?" "I'm doing what's necessary for my family. The Anderson legacy can't be tarnished by a girl being born first. There's a couple having a boy 2 rooms down. Simple switch. Will you help?" Message after message. Weeks of planning, the scheming, the methodical preparation to steal my daughter if she didn't meet Catherine's twisted standards. Then Derek found something that made everything infinitely worse. A text thread with his father, Richard Anderson. "Richard, if she is a girl, I'm going through with the plan. Catherine, I don't think this is wise. I'm not asking for permission. I'm telling you what's happening. You can either support your family's legacy or stay out of it. If you get caught, I won't. Barbara has been well compensated. The night security guard too. And Marcus and records. It's handled." Jesus Christ, Catherine. Don't take that tone. You're the one who's been complaining about the Anderson name for 30 years. I'm protecting it. You're welcome. Derek's hands shook so badly, he almost dropped his phone. Dad knew. Dad fucking knew, and he said nothing. The betrayal of his mother had been devastating. But this, knowing his father had been aware and hadn't stopped it, hadn't warned us, hadn't called the police, this was the complete annihilation of Derek's faith in his entire family. The trial took 8 months. 8 months of depositions and court dates and lawyer meetings while I tried to navigate new motherhood with a daughter who, thankfully, was too young to remember any of this. Catherine showed up to court every day in tasteful suits, her gray hair perfect, her expression carefully composed. She never looked at Derek, never tried to catch his eye. She knew she'd lost him forever, and rather than show remorse, she chose defiance. On the stand, she maintained that she'd been trying to protect the family. "The Anderson name means something," she said, her voice steady despite the jury's horrified expressions. "Certain traditions must be maintained. Certain standards upheld." "You kidnapped 2 babies," the prosecutor said flatly. "You paid 4 people to help you commit a felony. You traumatized 2 families. You destroyed your own family. For what? A tradition that you invented." Catherine's mask slipped for just a moment. "You don't understand what it's like to be part of a legacy family. The expectations, the pressure, the need to maintain." "No, Mrs. Anderson. You don't understand what it's like to be a mother. Because mothers don't trade their grandchildren like defective products. Mothers don't orchestrate kidnapping schemes because they're disappointed by the baby's sex." The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Barbara Chen received 3 years and lost her nursing license permanently. Marcus Liu received 2 years. James Peterson received 18 months. Sarah Mitchell received 18 months and lost her nursing license. All of them received probation extensions and fines that would bankrupt them for years. But Catherine, the mastermind, the woman who'd orchestrated the entire nightmare, received a plea deal. Because no physical harm had come to the babies and she was a first-time offender, the prosecution accepted 6 years federal time instead of a potential 20, with possibility of parole after 4 years. "The sentence reflects the calculated nature of your crime," the judge said, his voice heavy with disgust. "You didn't act in a moment of passion or confusion. You planned this meticulously. You recruited accomplices. You attempted to alter 2 families' lives permanently. You showed no remorse. This court finds your actions reprehensible and your attitude toward this crime deeply disturbing." Catherine stood there, stone-faced, as they read her sentence. The only sign of emotion was a slight trembling in her hands. Richard filed for divorce 3 weeks later. "I can't look at her anymore," he told Derek in what would be their last real conversation. "I can't believe I was married to someone capable of this for 40 years. And I can't forgive myself for knowing about it and not stopping it." Derek didn't respond. He simply hung up the phone. "My daughter turns 3 next week. We're having a small party at our new house. Derek and I moved across town 6 months after her birth. We needed to get away from the hospital where it all happened. Needed to escape the memories of those first 2 days holding someone else's baby while ours was with strangers. The Morrison family comes over regularly now. Tyler and Ava and their son Noah have become unexpected friends, bonded by trauma into something that feels like chosen family. Our kids play together now, completely unaware of how they met. We'll tell them someday when they're old enough to understand. Not yet. For now, they're just children who laugh when they see each other." Derek's in therapy.
So am I.
You don't just get over having your mother-in-law kidnap your newborn daughter. You don't just forget the feeling of holding someone else's baby while yours is missing. Those scars run deep. But they're healing. We're building a life that doesn't include Catherine's toxicity or Richard's complicity or the weight of a legacy that never actually existed. Catherine sent Derek a letter from prison last month. He opened it this time, read it at the kitchen table while I watched his face cycle through emotions I couldn't name. She says she's sorry for causing distress, but she still believes she was protecting the family legacy, Derek said, his voice bitter, broken. No real accountability. No genuine remorse. Just the same twisted justification wrapped in prettier words. He wrote back. One sentence. "You don't have a son anymore. You have nothing." Then he blocked her prison account. Blocked every possible avenue she had to reach him. Every channel. Every connection. "I'm done," he said simply. She made her choice. "I'm making mine." My daughter's first word was mama. Not the legacy Catherine wanted, but the one that actually matters. Sometimes justice isn't about revenge. Sometimes it's just about the natural consequences of your own actions finally catching up with you. Sometimes it's about a grandmother who loved tradition more than she loved her own family and paid the ultimate price for that twisted devotion. Catherine will be eligible for parole in 4 years. I don't know if she'll be released. I don't know if she'll try to contact us. I don't know if she spent a single moment in that prison cell feeling genuine remorse for what she did. What I do know is this. Every time I look at my daughter, I see her birthmark. The crescent moon on her left shoulder blade. That mark that saved her. That detail that couldn't be erased or altered or deleted. That proof that some things are permanent, some connections are unbreakable, some truths can't be hidden no matter how hard you try. I have the same mark. My mother has it. My grandmother had it. Every woman in my family carries this crescent moon, and my daughter carries it too. It's more than a birthmark. It's proof of lineage. It's proof of identity. It's proof that you can't fake biology, and you can't fake a mother's instinct. Trust your gut. Trust your instincts. Trust what you know in your bones, even when the whole world is telling you you're crazy. Even when medical professionals are dismissing your concerns. Even when your own family is gaslighting you. Because sometimes you're the only sane person in the room. And sometimes that's exactly where mothers need to be. Catherine wanted a legacy. She got one. She'll forever be known as the grandmother who kidnapped her own grandchild over gender disappointment. That story will follow her long after she gets out of prison. It will be the first thing anyone finds when they Google her name. Her permanent mark on the world.
Me?
I stopped crying for what I almost lost and started smiling at what I survived. I have my daughter. I have my husband. I have the Morrison family. I have a family built on truth and trust instead of lies and outdated legacies. And Catherine has 4 more years of prison food and regret. Do you believe forgiveness is possible after something like this? Or is cutting ties the only justice? Comment below if you think the sentence was fair. And don't forget to subscribe for more family betrayals that sound impossible until you hear the proof. Because trust me, they're out there. And sometimes the truth really is stranger than fiction.